Our secretary will talk about the minutes from our last meeting.
Well, I'll do my usual drill. I do have several copies of the minutes if people want to read them. I would read them, or we can waive the reading. They're available online and just give approval at that level. So we need someone to make a motion to waive the reading. And someone to second that motion? Thank you. And everyone in favor? Okay, thank you very much. If you want to read them, they're up here.
Okay, a treasurer's report, Phil.
Okay. We have $17,522.68 in the bank. This month, the income was $1,415. The outgo was $777.02. I'd like to thank the people who have signed up as members. Just want to clarify something. A question came up. Those people who sign up in a given year for membership, it's for that year. So if you sign up in 2024, anytime, it's for 2024. The next year, 2025, is a new year. It isn't everyone is staggered at different times. So just for clarification, that's it. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Phil, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to old business, and we're going to report on the best situation, the best steering committee. Bridget will give us an update.
Hi, everybody. The best status. There's a best steering committee, and they met for the first time on April 22nd, this past week. And the meeting was viewable online, and it's also on YouTube if you want to go look at it. It's an hour-and-a-half meeting. And the members included Maria Moore, Supervisor, Cindy McNamara, Ann Welker, Police Chief James Kiernan, Fire Chief John Rankin, Ryan Murphy, Janice Shearer, George Mutu, who is from the Planning Board, and a representative from NYSERDA and a representative from LIPO. Now, several people from the Civic and the Between the Bays group watched the meeting, and what we're going to do, I'll tell you a little bit about the meeting, but what we'd like to do is Phil, Chrissy, and I met yesterday, and we re-watched the video because it's very dense information. I mean, they're talking about megawatts and kilowatts and floating zones and, you know, all the zoning discussion. It's a very, you know, it's a hard thing to listen to. But we listened again, and we're going to compile a list of comments and questions. Our understanding is the community input is going to be received, and we'd like to ask our questions and provide our feedback to what we heard or didn't hear in the meeting, and ask them to respond. So that's what our plan is, and we have a tentative set of questions already put together. I believe there's going to be another couple of meetings. They talked about the next steering committee meeting. They said May 7th. I don't know if that's carved in stone. They also said there's going to be a meeting, sort of a meeting for the community, and that would be to sort of look at, they talked about maps, and it's interesting how they've sort of segued. There was good news out of this meeting, by the way. Hopefully it's good news. They're talking about industrial areas versus residential, and that's what we've been talking about all along. So what they're going to do is they took the maps and they removed everything that is, what we'll see is the progression, so that residential really should not have these large scale or VESs at all. That's to be determined because size is always going to be a consideration. So the jury is still out on what the outcome of this is going to be. It was promising, but we have to just really, I think, be focused on, and we will continue to do that. I know Phil, Chrissy, and I and others are going to be watching closely. and really trying to say, look, keep us on the right track here. And I think we want to hear more certainly from the police chief and the fire chief. They are people that are very critical to any kind of discussion here. So that's kind of a little nutshell. And, if you have any other questions, I'm sure we can answer them for you.
Thank you.
Or hope we can, yeah.
Where do we find that video?
It's on YouTube, and you can just Google Best Steering Committee Meeting. That's how we watched it yesterday on YouTube. You can also, I don't know if you can find it on the town website. I looked for it on the town website, and these meetings are not being published in the same way as the normal town meetings. Any other town meeting, the formal meetings, you can go to the website and watch them anytime you want, if you wanted to do that.
We can
But
ask them to put it on the page.
I'm sorry?
The best page, there's a best page on the town's website.
Oh, there is?
Yeah, so
Oh,
we
thank
can
you,
ask
Paul.
them to put the video on that page, so it's easy.
Perfect. I'll tell you something Gail and I were just talking about. The audio is much better on YouTube than it is on the town website.
Yes.
We watched it both ways, and the audio on YouTube is really superior. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. Now I'm going to give a little discussion of the Bel Air Cove. Okay, all right. I'm going to discuss the Bel Air Cove, a topic that's near and dear to my heart. With the latest developments, I see we have Councilperson Mike Azalea here. Maybe he might add to the conversation. But just to go back and a historical perspective on this. Well, not historical, this is from last year. We were told in November from various board members, the outgoing board, that being that the quickest way to get this building torn down would be to have the Community Preservation Fund have the town donate the property to the Community Preservation Fund. Then the Community Preservation Fund, being they owned the property, they would pay the cost of demolition, which because of asbestos contamination is around $260,000. You can correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Take it easy. All right. What happened is the building now has been vacant for almost 3 years, and it's a vacant building. It's deteriorating. It's been boarded up again. Some of the boarding up has come off. So it's become a hazard to the community. So our position is that it should come down as fast as possible. Can you hear me? No. Okay. Okay, it should come down as fast as possible. So to do that, again, we're supporting the donation from the town to the Community Preservation Fund, and then they could proceed with the demolition. Now, I was told that there would be a public hearing May 14th for that resolution, to have the town donate the property to the Community Preservation Fund, and so they will pay for the cost of tearing it down. Apparently, the Community Preservation Fund cannot buy it from the town. That's not permissible transaction. So previous to that, there was some hesitancy on the part of the town to do this because things were coming up that they wanted to use it for events. They didn't want to use good money after bad money. And our position is this is a safety issue. It should come down as soon as possible. So that's where we're at. So we're going to send a letter of support to the board to be read at that May 14th public hearing, that we want them to pass the resolution and put an end to this thing. It's a dangerous situation. It should come down as soon as possible. Do you want to make a comment about it?
Sure. So thank you, Ray. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Michael Iacilli, Town Council member. It's great to be with all of you. How are you? So Ray, you're right. So since we've taken office, we've been really working on this as best as we could. It hasn't been very easy. The last town board meeting, we passed the resolution to dissolve the urban renewal plan, which would have actually developed that parcel. That's done. May 14th Ray is correct, is the public hearing. to transfer the property into the CPF project plan, which would theoretically take a much quicker time to get the buildings down, to demolish the buildings. The resolution on May 14th is actually on the agenda as well. So not only is the public hearing scheduled, but the resolution to actually initiate the process is on the agenda as well this very same day. And I had actually informed the Civic Association of that information. So May 14th is the special day. We hope that it will follow that process and we will get it through CPF.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Is the resolution that the...
Ladies, please.
Is the resolution that the town...
Can you go to the mic?
I can shout.
Okay.
Is the resolution that the town will donate the property to the preservation fund?
It's going to be transferred to the CPF project plan. That's the specific technical language that is used. We're not donating it.
Okay, but that's what Ray is saying, you're doing what needs to be done.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the CPF is not going to purchase it from the town.
Once it goes into the CPF, that means it will stay a park. The town can't, down the road, generations to come, transform the parcel.
Okay.
Which is, I believe, what the Civic Association has advocated for.
Okay, good work.
Yeah, it's very good.
Thank you.
It was always, the motivation here should always be the safety of the community, of the residents of our community. And that's what was upsetting me. And such why I made such a big fuss. This building is a hazard. This is a vacant building. It's been vacant for 3 years. And one of the reasons why I can't breathe properly, I fought over 100 fires in vacant buildings in the Bronx. So I know what happens to vacant buildings. So I'm very happy that you had a part in this. Thank you very much. Okay. That was good news. Okay. Now, Gail Lombardi will give us an update on the Superfund cleanup site, the Hampton-based Fire Department cleanup site that the DEC is now promulgated. So I don't know. Yeah.
It's back. Oh, so you guys can hear me, right? My voice really doesn't carry. Is that correct? Can you guys hear me? No. Okay. Can you guys hear me now? Okay. Okay, so to just go back, some of you may not have been involved in the history of what had happened, but back in 2016 is when the testing of the water district determined that we had the PFOSs and the PFASs in our water in excess of what the EPA allowed the water to be. Ray. Oh my God. Okay. All right. So so in 2016 that was determined. We're so funny. In 2016 that was determined. And then so in tracing back where the water contamination came from, it was determined that the water contamination came from the fire district's building because they maintained the firefighting foam. And it had leaked into the soil, and the soil leaked into our water. In 2016-ish, 2017, the water district put in the carbon filters. There's three, it's called Field 1, which is our Ponquag field. It has 3 wells there, and they put in carbon filters into those wells to protect the water and get it down to where it's EPA safe for us to drink. However, those carbon filtrations are not able to be used in the winter. So those wells have to be shut down in the winter, or they had to cover them. In 2019, 2020, when it was determined that the Superfund site was at the firehouse, the town at that time commissioned a 10-year capital plan. So I don't know if you guys have noticed, the water bills had skyrocketed, but the plan was for about $34 million. And so they're collecting that from both our taxes. So even if you have a well, and I don't know who here has a well, you still pay taxes through your real estate taxes for the water district, and for those that are customers, pay through our customers. The actual person liable, the actual entity liable for the contamination and for the cleanup is the fire district. However, we circulated 2 documents to you all, which were the documents to the cleanup from the DEC and the documents from our water district, saying the water district's carbon filtration systems is part and parcel to the fire department cleanup, which is kind of unusual. Also, the DEC now, the EPA has now raised or lowered, whichever way you want to look at it, lowered the standard that it's 4 parts per trillion of the chemical that's allowable in our water as of April of 2024. It was back in 2016, I think it was as much as 70. And so the way I've been discussing, none of us here are experts. I think the outcome to all this, I've gotten some emails, I've talked to some people that have been involved in different cleanups. I think the outcome that we would like to, if it's okay with the membership, is to go to prepare a letter to the DEC and to the fire department and as our town board as our commissioners, asking them to keep the record open because it closes on May 10th, to keep the record open until we have a public forum that we could ask all our questions. Who's going to pay for all this? So I think it's really important that we are given the opportunity to ask our questions, because right now we could ask our questions, but it's going into a vacuum in DEC. So we can't answer them. I mean, there are a lot of questions. Who's going to pay for it? How long is it going to take? They're accelerating this plan. Our water district is involved. So does anybody have a problem if we go to the DEC on behalf of the civic and ask them to keep the record open and try to arrange a public forum with the fire district and our town officials? Is that okay? Yes? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we do just that.
I second it. All right. Those in favor, please.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Just to give a perspective on this, when they say 2 parts per trillion, a million is 6 zeros, a billion is 9 zeros, a trillion is 12 zeros. That's how a small amount of this stuff is so dangerous. So, and back in the 70s, this stuff was using film foaming firefighting foam, and we used it in the fire department. And, I was 21 years old. We used to fight with extinguishers with each other. We used to soak each other with this stuff. So now we have a big incident of this. We're all in a program. So this is very serious stuff. So I really think that our community should have the chance to question this, ask questions, and that's what we need, a public hearing. So thank you very much for your support on
The firemen
that.
are still there.
Excuse me?
The firemen are still in the building, using the building.
It's in the soil contamination. The building's not contaminated.
The soil is contaminated, but this does.
And they said in the report, again, we're taking the report, it's not at the surface. It's at a certain level. Our well water is below it, but it is affecting our current Ponquag wells. It's seeped into the Ponquag wells where the wells are drilled. And so there's a lot, I have like a laundry list of questions. We don't want to get into all the details, but I think other people emailed me with questions. We don't know the answers. So I think it's only fair. I hope we could keep the record open and everybody could ask their questions and get answers. I'm hoping we can, so.
I just have a quick question. Last year, this might not be anything to do with it, but they drilled a hole in the parking lot, the auxiliary parking lot of the Ponquag Beach.
That's actually, I do know the answer to that, if that's okay. It is different. It actually was because all of Suffolk County, that was out of Suffolk County, and I'm sorry that I actually know the answer to this. But Suffolk County, there was a town board resolution that Suffolk County wanted to drill that well because in Suffolk County, there's salt water intrusion in our wells, which means we're over drilling. So that was a test site that Suffolk County chose in the town of Southampton to test for over drilling.
Was there an answer to that?
I don't think so.
We don't know what the answer is, but
that would go straight to Suffolk County.
Our wells,
give them permission.
Our wells are drawing so much fresh water, it's being replaced by salt water.
Right.
And they want to know at what rate, because saltwater infusion will spoil our wells, foul our wells.
Yeah, so that was why that well was built.
Okay.
But
All right.
Michael might explain better. They are doing test wells for us in case they have to drill in the well.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Gail. Now, Marion, as we started in our program of Community Member of the Month, this month is Pat McGee. And, she didn't hear me,
I was
realized.
Patty McKee.
Patricia.
You have been chosen citizen.
You've been chosen as the community member of the month. Stand up. Stand up.
Come up here.
Marion will say some,
Come up here.
oh my God.
The board voted you as our citizen of the month for the month. It's a tradition started a few months ago. And no, most of us know her as Patty, not Patricia McKee. But you have roots going back in Hampton Bays since childhood, and you've moved here full time after you retired in 2012. You've been, besides being a civic association member, you were a member of the nominating committee, and you were one of the first to organize the Between the Bays Committee. You quickly became knowledgeable about the negative impacts and potential hazards of a battery energy storage system in a residential area. And you attended multiple meetings in town hall and shared some of your concerns via several letters to the editor of the Southampton Press. In addition to your civic work, as you know, but maybe they don't know, Patty is the board chair of the Centro Corazon de Maria, which provides many services, including English language classes and other practical services to those in our Spanish-speaking community. Patty's also one of the leaders of St. Rosalie's Committee for the Common Good, which, among other community activities, keeps our 2 emergency food boxes filled, one by the library and one over near the park. It keeps them filled, and she also helps feed and provide overnight services via the Committee for the Common Good to the homeless clients of Maureen's Haven. And so it's our pleasure to recognize you as our outstanding community member of the month, Patricia.
And she's also a great neighbor.
Okay, that's great. Okay, now, before we go to our guests, I just want to say that if you want to ask a question, please come up to the mic here. You have to come up to the mic and speak. If you're reluctant, or for some reason you don't want to get up and ask a question, we have index cards. Chrissy has index cards. She'll give you the index card, she'll write down your question, and then anonymously later on ask your question for you, okay? So we got everybody covered. So it's my pleasure to introduce Kara back, who I just found out was, her father was a captain. Chief, I'm sorry. Yeah, he was in Fort. Oh my God. Wait a minute, we gotta find this out. Yeah, I think he was the captain of 40. I remember working with him. Anyway, so now she is the director of the Community Housing Fund. She also she's the director of the Community Services, which oversees the Senior Center here, which is a wonderful program. It really is. I come here once or twice a week to eat and also to play cards. It's a really wonderful, wonderful program. I can't say enough about it. So please welcome her. And,
well, thank you, Ray. Thank you for asking me to come speak to you all here tonight about some of the programs that are available. Can you hear me?
You gotta get closer.
About some of the programs that we have available under our newly established Community Housing Fund. As most of you probably already know, in 2022, the Community Housing Fund was established by local law by the voters of the town of Southampton. And what the law established a 0.5% tax on real estate transactions throughout the town, and this was to help the affordable housing, create housing that is affordable in order to sustain our community. So the New York State legislation gave some broad categories of what the funds could be used for. And what I did was last summer I worked on researching some programs across the country that are working in other resort communities that are having the same kind of problems that we're having. And I put together some programs under each of those categories. So I had passed out tonight just a handout for you that kind of lists the four areas in which the New York State allows the funds to be used for. So the first one is for programs for first-time homebuyers who live or work in the town. Second is for programs that produce affordable housing for sale. Third, programs that produce affordable housing for rent. And the fourth is for the acquisition of interest in existing housing. So in researching a lot of these programs, you know, I believe strategically that you can create affordable housing without creating a substantial density. And that's kind of what I did when I was working on creating some of these programs. It's important to me as a resident of this town myself to make sure that we don't change the look and the feel of our community. And so I was very thoughtful in kind of creating these programs to make sure that we do just that. And so what I'd like to do is take a little bit of time to go through all of the programs are available under each of these categories with you, so you know what's out there, and you can let people know. So, for example, the first one I'd like to just talk to you about is the first-time homebuyer down payment assistance programs. So, the law establishes, defines a first-time homebuyer as an eligible individual who has not owned a primary residential property and is not married to a person who has owned a residential property during the 3-year period prior to his or her purchase of the property, and who does not own a vacation or investment property. They also have a income limit, which is $184,000 for any 2 or more people. And they also put a limitation on the price of the home that this first-time home buyer can buy, and that's at $1.6 million. It's pretty high. Yeah, I know. So believe it or not, I think our median sales price is above that right now. I think we're at 1.8, right? Yeah, within the town. All of Southampton. I think it's at 1.8 right now. Yeah, the township. So one of the first programs that I worked on was the down payment assistance loan program for a first-time home buyer. And it is up to 3% of the purchase price. When you're a first-time home buyer, you need a minimum of 5% down to get a Sony Mae loan. And so we wanted to have a program that required a first-time home buyer to have some of their own skin in the game, So we'll allow up to 3% of the purchase price as a down payment assistance loan from CHF. And there's 0% interest rate, no monthly payments. It's repaid when the home is sold or refinanced. And the buyer needs to occupy it as a primary residence. So that's the first program. We also have a shared equity program, which is for people who are at 80% of the area median income. It consists of a percentage of the property's purchase price. The town would contribute a portion of the purchase price. And then CHF, the Community Housing Fund, would share in the property's appreciation when the house is sold. Also, the buyer has to occupy that as their primary residence. We have another program called the remodel program. Somebody who might want to purchase a foreclosure or a home that's been, not taken care of in the community. We can work with them to give them a low interest rate, 30-year loan to cover rehabilitation for things like structural alterations and improvements, kitchen, bathrooms, roofing, plumbing or electrical upgrades, things that will help to make the home livable and also help the community because we're fixing up a home that's maybe abandoned or not being taken care of in the community, and allowing a family to move in as a first-time home buyer. We also have a program that's an employer assistant down payment match program. So if some of the employers will provide down payment assistance to their employees, CHF can come in and match that program. We have the next category, which is programs that produce affordable housing for sale. This is for a developer. If the developer's coming in and is creating new housing, if the developer will reserve that housing for affordable housing, we would contribute some funds to that, but the developer has to covenant that those homes will be affordable in perpetuity and that the buyers of those homes will be income qualified. The next category is programs that produce affordable housing for rent. So we have an accessory apartment program. The town right now has been awarded money from New York State. We applied for a grant called the Plus One ADU program. It was a grant program that the state was offering. The town applied for it, and in the initial round was awarded $1.25 million from New York State. And what that program allows is a grant up to $125,000 for anybody who wants to create an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit on their property. The owner has to be income qualified, the owner of the property, at 100% of the area median income. The tenant has to be their primary residence, and the owner it also has to be their primary residence. But the tenant has to income qualify, and the rent has to be affordable rent of that ADU. We had a tremendous response to that program. The town applied for a second round, and we were granted that as well. And we hope to roll out that second round probably late spring, early summer. And because we had such a tremendous response to that, the town is considering a companion program to that, which would be through the Community Housing Fund. It would run very similar to the Plus One program. The Plus One program is being administered by the Community Development Corp of Long Island for the town. That was one of the requirements of the state program, was that the town work with a not-for-profit housing agency to run the program, and the town selected Community Development Corp of Long Island. So they will run the town's companion program as well. And the difference between the Plus One program and the town's program is that anybody who wants to put an ADU on their property can do so. There will be no income requirement for the owner. Now, also a difference is where the the Plus One program is a grant, and that money is forgiven as long as the ADU is in the program for 10 years. The town CHF program will be a loan, and that will have to be paid back. It will be a 20-year, no-interest loan, but that will have to be paid back. We also, under the category programs that produce affordable housing for rent, we have an adaptive reuse program. So that would be for commercial property. Thank you. That would be for commercial property that a developer wants to convert into residential dwelling units. They can apply for some funding through the Community Housing Fund. We have requirements on that all units in the project are for households that come at or below 130% of the area median income, and that would be a 30-year low-interest loan. We also have a motel conversion program. That would be reusing some of these motels that we have and creating housing for the town's seasonal and year-round workforce. The units would be income restricted and serve households earning up to 80% of the area median income. And the rent on those would have to be affordable rents. And then lastly, we have under category 4, the acquisition of interest in existing housing. We have 2 programs that are developed. One is affordable covenants for the town's workforce, seniors, and disabled. And I've had a lot of interest in this program as well. So specifically for covenants for the town's workforce. If you have a property, maybe a small apartment building that you want to reserve the units for the town's workforce, the town can work with you to, as long as you rent those units to somebody who works at least 30 hours in the town, and people that are living there income qualified, the town could pay the difference between the market rate rent that you would receive and the affordable rent that you would be charging. That makes the owner of the property whole while reserving units for our town's workforce. We also apply the same thing to seniors and to the disabled as well. And then there's some mortgage assistance. There's a mortgage assistance program that we're still developing for the volunteer essential workers for the town. It could help volunteer essential workers make up the difference or make their mortgage payments. It would be a direct payment to their mortgage lender if they're having some difficulty making their mortgage payments. So those are the programs under the Community Housing Fund, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has questions about them.
Lot size requirements on the ADUs, can you talk about that, please?
Sure, yep. So right now, under our accessory dwelling unit, you need a lot of 30,000 square feet, which is 3/4 of an acre, unless the area where you want to have the ADU is in a census designated place where there are less than 500 people per square mile, then you can go down to 20,000 square feet or a half acre.
Well, it doesn't apply to Hampton Bays, the low density, that's for sure. But it's, okay, so in Hampton Bays, it would be 30,000 square feet would be the minimum lot size.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't look like Queens and about, not specifically
I
Queens.
have a question. You want to come up to the mic? Yes.
No, whoever, I was going to say, whoever has questions should come up to the mic.
Hi, how are you? David Friedenson. I live here in Hampton Bays. It was my understanding that ADUs are illegal west of the canal. Has that changed?
ADUs are illegal?
You cannot take an existing structure, convert it into an ADU. East of the canal, it's allowed. West of the canal, it's not allowed. Has that changed?
No, the town code applies across all of the hamlets.
You're saying that never existed, or it's changed?
Not that I'm aware of.
Well, I think that there's a requirement of how many square footage of the property plot.
No.
Yeah.
No, that's not what I'm asking.
Well,
If you have an existing structure on your property and you want to convert it to an ADU, if you're west of the canal, not allowed. East of the canal, allowed. You're saying that's, I'm completely mistaken about that.
I was involved when the first ADU law passed, and it was under Scapini, as I recall, and that never was one of the,
That's not on,
never.
that's not on
And
the
I
town of
think maybe
Southampton
what
website.
some people got confused about was one of the things we were told is since so many of our lot sizes in Hampton Bays are smaller than 30,000 square feet, it wouldn't apply here. You wouldn't get too many ADUs allowed. But otherwise, no, I never heard that ever.
That's not on the town of Southampton
Never. I
website.
never heard it.
Any other questions? Anybody else? I have a question. My question is, what is the median income of Southampton Town? You kept saying the median income. Do you have a figure for that?
So it's a Nassau-Suffolk median income that's established by HUD, the Federal Housing Urban Development. So, and it is arranged by the number of people in the family. So usually we look at a family of 4. So the median income for a family of 4 in Nassau, Suffolk County is $156,300. That's the median, 100% median income.
All right.
So usually with our housing programs, we allow people to go up to 130% of the area median income. So just for example, 156 is the 100% median income, 130% is $203,000.
Quick question. So you had mentioned that the accessory apartment program is doing very well. How many applications have you received? 10, 15, I guess?
So the applications are going through the Community Development Corp of Long Island. They're the agency that's accepting the applications for that +1 program. My understanding is during the first round, they had gotten so many applications by September. The applications opened in July, and by September, they had so many. The grant only allowed for really 10 units at $1.25 million and up to $125,000 grant, only allowed for 10. And by September, they had 56, I think was the number. So they closed down the application process at that point to be able to kind of be able to go through all the applications and do it. So we're gonna open it up again towards the end of the spring, early summer for the second round.
Thank you. So since it's a grant, do you publicize the addresses of these accessory apartments? Because I would think that other people would want to know where the accessory apartments are, and if they have relatives or friends that would like to pay for, underrated apartments or, affordable apartments, they'd like to know what the address is.
Yeah, so we don't pick the tenants. We allow the owner of the property, the person who puts that ADU on their property, to select their own tenants.
Oh, I understand that. I mean, the locations.
Yeah, what we do is we just make sure that we income qualify the tenant, to make sure that the tenant income qualifies.
Do you advertise the locations of each one of these accessory apartments?
No, we don't. We wouldn't do that because we don't pick the tenant. We allow the owner to pick their own tenants.
Okay. And the owners have to submit their 1040s at the end of the year? Do they have to submit tax forms to make sure that they're income eligible and things of that nature?
So,
they're not making more than what was understood?
So during the initial application process for this +1 program, the Community Development Corp of Long Island, they do all of the vetting. They make sure that the owner meets that 100% area median income, and they go through that process to qualify the owner.
The owners of the house, do they have to yearly submit their 1040s in order to make sure that they are not taking more than what was understood?
So what the owner has to do is, at the beginning, when they apply for this grant program, they have to meet the requirements. After that, we check to make sure that the tenant meets the qualifications, so that the rent being charged by the owner, it doesn't exceed the allowable rent, and that the tenant that they have living in the property is income qualified.
So every year after, the owners of the accessory unit has to report to Southampton Town who is living in that unit. So,
Yeah, we
as
don't.
you just said that.
Yeah, we would check to make sure that that tenant income qualifies and that the rent is affordable. Those are the things that my department would check.
How do you do that?
We do it through an affidavit process to make sure that it's their primary residence, that they're living there, and then we do require them to submit either tax returns or pay stubs, and we do require a copy of the lease.
Okay.
The signed lease.
Thank you.
So Kara, a couple of things. You talked about the lot size. So maybe you could just explain the current law, because there are changes. I watched the work session, so the current law, we still have that exclusion for Hampton Bays, right? That if it's, because we're highly dense, we are still over the 30, not the 20, but I know that was one of the things they're considering taking out. But, so one, can you describe the types of accessory dwelling units, the size and type under the current law, and what the town or some members of the town board not you, I realize, are proposing for potential changes, because I think that was a problem. That was a adverse impact to Hampton Bays when I watched the work session. So can you describe the current, size of the accessory dwelling unit, where it is in relation to the main house, inside, outside? And then what are some of the proposals that have come up in the work session that might adversely affect Hampton Bays for density?
So there are two types of accessory dwelling units: detached, which is like your standalone, where people think of tiny homes and things like that. Yep, and attached. So right now, as I mentioned, you need a lot size of 30,000 square feet to be able to have any accessory dwelling unit, whether it's detached or detached. The current law allows a detached accessory dwelling unit to be up to 1,000 square feet. It allows an attached accessory dwelling unit to be 1,200 square feet. I have not been working on the changes to the accessory dwelling unit law, so probably the best person to direct those questions to about what the changes are going to be would be Tommy John or Janice Shera. They're the ones that are working on the accessory dwelling unit law. I will tell you that I do think it's important just to keep in mind that I think the accessory dwelling unit is, it is very helpful to people who have, we've seen the people that are applying for this +1 ADU program who have children who are disabled and who they want to keep living with them, but having them live separately from them, or they have an older parent who they want to keep, living with them. We've seen that quite a bit. But I think it's very important that when we look at this ADU law, that we, are very thoughtful in how they go about making changes to it. Because, you just want to be careful that you're not changing the look and feel of our township through this ADU law. And I think that there are ways to create affordable housing without, strategically, without substantially creating more density. And I think we can do it. I think that a lot of the programs that I've just gone over with you in my program plan do just that. And I think that we just have to be it has to be a very thoughtful process. Look, I live here for a reason. We all live here for a reason. We all love the open space and, the beauty of this community, and we don't want to change it. And I think that, we can create affordable housing without doing that. It just has to be very thoughtful and thought out.
So Kara, thank you. And nobody's getting up, so I'm going to ask a follow-up question. So it is really, thankful. I know that that's how you feel. I hope others feel the same way. I guess there's two things. One, when you said 1,000, 1,200, isn't there also like a limitation? If your main house is 1,000, is the percentage of your main house?
Yes,
but that's not the case.
There is something in the law that
I think it's
talks
a
about
percent,
it can't be more than 30%.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think what it came down to when you guys were doing the revision, and Adam and I were both at the CAC at the time, when they were doing the revisions to the ADU, and it was one of these town council people that's no longer town council person poached for the exclusion in Hampton Bays. It was two things, and Adam probably remembers better than I am because he's a little younger. One is when the property's transferred, there really is no control over now the makeup of the owner and the accessory. That was the first thing, so I don't know how you're going to do that. And second was also the tax implications, which again, I don't think you can answer the questions. The other thing was the real estate tax implications. So in other words, you have 1,000 square foot apartment, and if you guys do change with some of the issues that I heard at the work session that you're going to do away with the exclusion for Hampton Bays, that it can be on a half acre, and that would create many, many more potential accessory units. The real estate tax effect. So it was our understanding, and you may not be able to answer it, our understanding at the time was that the person's real estate taxes really didn't increase. So, we as one-family homeowners that don't have an ADU, and now you have 1,000 square foot, your neighbor does, and there could be children going to the school district and wear and tear on the community, it becomes an imbalance. That person does have a benefit of the rent and helping out maybe a family member, but the tax burden is now falling onto the other party. So I don't know if any of that's being addressed.
So let's answer the first question that you said. How do we keep track if the owner changes? So when an owner changes, they have to apply for a new rental permit through code enforcement. And when they go through that process, they have to show the paperwork on the new tenant to make sure that the new tenant income qualifies, that the lease shows that the rent isn't going to be more than the allowable rent. So that's kind of how that's checked, and then the papers go through my office and we check on all that. So that's it. With regard to the tax implications, my understanding is that yes, these ADUs are taxed.
What did you say?
They are taxed. Their real estate taxes will increase
So is it safe
for
to
the
assume that
ADUs.
if you give a home, $125,000 to, I guess, make an accessory dwelling unit, the assessed value of that home is $125 more than the original assessment, right? Because if I do something in my home and I go to the town is asking me how much did I pay to add to my house. I've got to show them a receipt, and then that automatically gets added to my assessed value.
Yeah, that's beyond what I know.
There's a question back there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please stand.
Come up to the mic.
Come up to the mic.
Come up to the mic.
Speak very loud. I'm a real estate agent, and I have a question. So, if we are selling a home that has an accessory unit in it, we don't have anything to say it has to be a market value or anything like that. We're selling it a house with an accessory unit. They can put their kid in it, their mother in it, whoever. But on a regular house that the town has done as low income, we have to be very specific that it has to be a low income person to go into that home. So how is this going to work? That they're going to be given the ADU, and then all of a sudden they're going to turn it into a compound,
So
a family compound.
Yeah, in order to be able to rent that ADU, they have to get a rental permit.
Not if it's their mother.
Yeah, they still need a rental permit. They're waived from the provisions of the income qualifications and the rent qualification, but they still have to get a rental permit.
So are you going to tell, or the seller going to tell the real estate agent how much the max rent is on that unit?
Well, the real estate should know
That's my question.
Yeah, well, the real estate would know that any ADU that was issued a permit from the town after 2019 is subject to these restrictions. It's in the town code. So the real estate agent should be telling the prospective buyer that it is subject to income qualification and rental qualifications. And then if they need to know the amounts, my office is happy to answer those questions.
What if they don't want to? What if they don't want to rent it out?
Well, they don't have to rent it out, but they can't rent it out unless it qualifies.
Well, no, I mean, what if they want to use it? I've been doing this for a very long time. Like, what if they want to say, well, the kids are going to come this weekend and we're just going to use it for the summer for the kids when they come?
That would be illegal.
So how is the enforcement of the town on all the illegal apartments in the basement is a little abysmal. And I think everybody in this room would agree with me on that. So how how is the town going to, how, as a real estate agent, not get sued, that they said, well, you didn't tell us that we had to rent this to a low-income person. We just want it to be part of our living space. We turn it into a game room.
Yeah, well, I think as a real estate agent, if you're selling a home that has an ADU that was permitted after 2019, you should inform any buyer of the restrictions.
You don't understand, I don't think, and maybe I'm not explaining it right. But as a listing agent, yes, you could put some things out. But a lot of people from Queens come in and they try to sell here and they don't know our laws. So then they have somebody coming from out of the area, and if you're from Queens, I'm very sorry, I'm just picking it out of the air. It could be Brooklyn, it could be Montclair, and then, so then, where does the town stand? Where does code enforcement stand on that?
Maybe I'm not understanding, but if you're a listing agent and you're listing the property, right, I think as the listing agent, you have an obligation to inform any other real estate broker who's bringing a buyer about the restrictions on that ADU.
Okay, so you say that this has restrictions, but then if the buyer comes in and says, we're not gonna do that, we're not renting it, then what happens?
Well, if they don't rent it,
does the town lose track of it?
Well,
because it's not been rented, it's in the same family, everything's gone, and so then it gets sold again. Where does the town step back in and say, wait a second, that was an ADU?
I think, is it, Kara, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that affidavit process that you cited earlier, is that an annual process?
So we have an affidavit process when they apply for the rental permit, but I think what you're saying is if they keep it vacant? Am I understanding you correctly?
Well, no, if somebody buys it and they don't rent it, they just keep it as part of their home. And it got in on a.
So if they're converting it to a one-family house, they need to go to the building department and change their certificate of occupancy because it's no longer a single family with an ADU. Now you're saying they're using it as a single family, so they need to change their, that's
my question. Is the building department, if they don't, where does the building department step in?
So if they don't do it, then they're in violation? That actually would be a better question for code enforcement. I don't know how code enforcement monitors these. If a rental, I don't. I mean, if the rental permit should expire, I don't know if code enforcement sends somebody out. I just don't know what they do.
I guess my question is, as a resident of Hampton Bays, that, if all these accessory apartments come in and all this kind of stuff, and some of them are used, some of them aren't used, and the town loses track of who's renting, who's not, then we're back even worse than we are now, with 5 people living in a basement, 7 people living in a basement, because they can't count the number of cars in front of the house at night, or they lose track that it used to be an ADU, and then the people didn't do anything with it, they just used it as a storage thing for whatever, their body boards or whatever, and then it gets sold again, and the listing agent comes in, and then I said, no, we've never done anything. It was an ADU a long time ago. We just let it go, and it's just here. So where does the town stand up to say, wait a second?
So I think what you're saying is...
They come in on a deal.
Yeah, but I think what you're saying, if it goes through a cycle of being rented, not rented, and then rented, that would be a violation.
You'll never find it.
They're not fine. It's a black hole.
I don't
It's a
know
black hole.
that.
They can't find the obvious now. I have to say this again, if you want to, please get online if you want to ask a question. I just want to come back because we mentioned about code enforcement. We had code enforcement here, and since then, I have gotten the most emails and questions about code enforcement, so we're going to have them again, because apparently a lot of people are dissatisfied with the job code enforcement is done. And I don't think they enforce any of these apartments. Like after Hurricane Ida, we had in the city, all those people who drowned in those vaulted apartments, basement apartments. I wrote a letter to the paper and to the town about they should review these, a lot of illegal basement apartments, which do not have egress windows, do not have a second means of egress, and they're vaulted apartments. In other words, there's only one way in and one way out, and they have no windows to get out, and if they flood or something, or there's a fire, the people are trapped in it. And we have lots of, and they never did anything about it. So I do intend to have, we would like to have code enforcement here again. We do intend to have code enforcement here again, and I think that question would be very pertinent to code enforcement, really, because I don't think they're doing an adequate job. That's just my opinion, but we're gonna have, we would like to have them here again. Good,
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you for your participation.
My question is very similar to yours. After thinking about this, I'm not really very much for it in this town. Code enforcement, they're weak. You know, we can't get them to do anything. I don't even know what they do. But, because I just visited their office and it was outrageous. The fact that, so you have this apartment next to your house, right? That's the deal? You're selling this apartment? And you're selling it to a husband and wife and a kid. Next thing you know, it's a husband and wife, the grandmother, the aunt, and the uncle. What happens? And you know what? What happens if they don't pay the rent or they don't pay the mortgage? What's the deal on getting them out? I mean, are you like stuck with these people now? Because, you know, that happens in this town. And then your property value goes down because you live next to these slummers who aren't doing anything. Like, I don't think it's a good idea. I think if it was, I don't even know if family, you have a decent family, you can do it. But if a family's not decent, you can't do it. I mean, I don't know what line you can draw there. But I don't think I'm for this. I think we're going to look slummier than we look now. You know, I just can't see it happening.
I think if it's relatives, if they should be able to show income and everything too. They have to be people.
It's a done deal, my husband just said.
And not, then they can't move in as a mother or father-in-law.
But you know that doesn't happen here. Code doesn't take care of it. I just spoke to a fireman about people living in, they have walls made out of cardboard separating their bedrooms.
She's right.
That's happening in this town. What's happening? So is code going there and saying, hey, listen, this is a fire hazard. Like, this can't be. I don't know. I don't know what they do. I don't trust them, and I don't trust someone living next door to me or on my property being good-natured trying to help them out, and now can't get them out. So, you know, it's very scary to me.
Thank you, Irene. Just to follow up on this, I spoke to the, what's Sean's last name, the attorney at the...
Campbell.
And I want him to come because I want him to explain why they can't, the problems they have in trying to enforce some of this stuff. Because they can't enter an apartment or a house, they need a search warrant to do that. And they only can do visible what they can see from the street. So it's difficult. And they don't work at night, they don't count the cars. And there's quite a few, when I walk my dog in the morning, I see all this stuff, and I said, you know, the problem is, especially with these basement apartments, they're very, very dangerous. And they should have a task force look at it, but they don't. So we're gonna I wanna have the attorney from the town attorney's office, and we also wanna have Sean back here, because we need to have this, we need an active code enforcement in this town. I just wanna go back to about the taxes. Lisa Goree, who we were gonna have, who we wanted to have here, who we will have here, who's the town assessor, told me now that when they reassess these houses with these apartments, they only increase it by square footage, the amount of square footage that the house has increased, and that's what they judge the increase in taxes. And I said, well, that's not really fair. Suppose they have 2 kids living there, they go to the school district, and that's 75% of our tax bill is the school. So that's another thing I would want the town board to look at before they approve these things. What's going to be the tax implications of this with more children in the school district? Go ahead, Anna, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Carrie, you're doing a great job, and thank you very much for your time. My easy question is, how many Hampton Bays homes are in the ADU program? How many have been approved?
I'd have to get back to you on that. I don't have that answer.
So if we have an outside group called the Community Development of Long Island running the program, they don't take into account a couple in Hampton Bays, a couple in Quogue, a couple in Southampton, a couple in Watermill.
Yeah, so they go have a monthly meeting with us, and they let us know the status of the applications, because they have strict timelines that they have to meet with the New York State. They have to have so many contract by a certain date, they have to have so many under construction by a certain date. But anyway, what they tell us is, the location of where they are. And I can tell you that, they are spread throughout the town. There are some up in, North Sea, there are some in Bridgehampton, there are some in East Quogue. They are spread all over the place. We're not seeing them really concentrated in any one hamlet.
Okay, do we have any more questions? Okay, please.
Okay, this is interesting about the accessory apartment. So firstly, do you have to be part of this? Are there only so many allowed? Do you have to be part of this program to do the accessory apartments? Or could you just, like if you were very wealthy and you just say, okay, I want to do it, I don't want to borrow any money, I just want to do it? Can you do that separately from this?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, not in this program.
Right, this is just
Okay.
the grant program that I was speaking to you about tonight, the Plus One program.
Okay.
But sure, and if your lot meets the requirements under the town code and you meet all the other requirements, you can certainly
Sure.
build an ADU.
All right, well, in answer to her question about the real estate selling it, didn't you say that you borrow the money and then you have to pay it back when you sell the property or when it's over?
So there are two programs, the
Right.
Plus One ADU program. If you keep that apartment in the program for 10 years, that is a grant, and you're given the $125,000 is forgiven.
But if you sell it before, but if you do something before the 10 years?
Yeah, so you sell the property before the 10 years, it is prorated. So if you sold it in year 5, you'd pay back 50%.
So I would think that whoever runs this program would probably send a lawyer to the closings. I mean, they want their money back, right? I mean, someone's keeping track of this.
It's a lien on the property.
Right.
So it would be a payment at the closing.
Right, so it's not gonna fall through the cracks because the payment is due, right? Someone's watching that.
That's correct, right. It's recorded against the property, yeah.
Okay, all right, well, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for coming. It's a great program. So if someone does an ADU, do they have to redo their septic?
It depends, it could, and it's all up to the Suffolk County Health Department.
Okay.
So the Suffolk County Health Department allows, my understanding is it allows up to 4 bedrooms before you have to upgrade the septic system. So if you're putting in a 1-bedroom ADU on a 3-bedroom home, you would not have to upgrade your septic system. But anything above that, you would have to upgrade.
Does it matter like where you're living in proximity to the water? Or does that have nothing to do with it?
That's
okay.
Health Department question.
Health Department.
Just pointing out, the closer you are to the water, the higher your rating is to get an IA system.
Yes, no, that I knew.
They've got zones, and the closer you are, the more likely you are to be required. Anytime you go to get a building permit to do something
Any
new,
change.
That's true. Any new
you're gonna have to
construction.
get an IA system. They did that in 2020, somewhere in here, the county changed it. If you're building something new, you're putting in an IA system. You can get a grant for it, most people can.
I've seen that.
It's
yeah.
worth doing.
In regards to all of this, because to me, all of this is like I'm a fish out of water. Is there someone in the town to assist you with the application process, the questions, like obviously?
Yeah, sure. Anybody is welcome to call my office. We'll help them the best that we can through the application. But the Community Development Corp of Long Island is really hands-on, and they will assist you through the application process.
That's for the actual grant.
Yeah, I have, if anybody wants, I do have some brochures here tonight, and it does have all the information about the program and how to contact the Community Development Corp of Long Island.
but that's-
Right now, what they're doing is they're taking interest forms because that second round of funding hasn't been released yet. So you can go online, you can fill out an interest form, and as soon as the second round of funding is released, they'll contact you and you can fill out an application.
Okay, if you want to do something that is within your domain of the current home you have, that's allowable as well? It doesn't have to be separate?
No, you can do a basement conversion, a garage conversion. Some people are doing a conversion over their garages. Some people are putting extensions on the home. Some people are doing these tiny homes, that are separate, detached, yeah.
Right. Okay, thank you.
We have the brochures up here. Anybody who's interested in this program? I know some people in the senior center. I'm going to give these. No, not that they won't. Okay. All right. Any more questions we have for our guests? Anybody? Going once, going twice? Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming.
I'll leave some of my cards up here too. If anybody has questions and, they didn't, want to ask them tonight, feel free to call my office. We're happy to answer questions.
Have we gotten anywhere with batteries?
Battery. Yeah, that's system? Yeah, it was early.
We just talked about that earlier. Too many cocktails at dinner there. All right. I just wanted to say that we were going to have Jacqueline Fenwick from the Community Preservation Fund tonight, and she contacted me this afternoon. She had a family emergency came up, and she couldn't make it. So she asked us, she wants to be rescheduled, so we're going to do that later in the year. And because a lot of stuff we want to know about from the Community Preservation Fund. So that's what happened. So we don't have that guest. Excuse me? Yeah, we can go. All right, we just have a few more items. We have new business. And one of the things that I've been getting, someone suggested to me, and which I picked up on, is this thing for Senior Wednesday in the Hamlet, where if you're over 60 or 65 or over 55, they're going to issue 10% off coupons for on Wednesday. If you can go to any store or restaurant and get 10% off if you're in that age group. So I'm going to reach out to the don't make me laugh at this. The Chamber of Commerce to try to explore this program. I think it's really worthwhile. It's good for the businesses to bring more customers into them and help a lot of the seniors. We're having a kind of rough time with it with this inflation and everything. These people are all on fixed income. All right, now, the second thing is we've had many inquiries about forming a Hampton Bays village. Now, I'm not, I don't know. We have a contingent of people that want to do it, and if you're interested in doing this, please leave your contact information with Patty. Patty, raise your hand, Patty. And we're going to try to get you all together, and you can form like an exploratory committee to look into this. We're kind of overwhelmed right now, so we really can't. But if you know people that want to do it, that are interested in it, that want to form a committee, please give your information. We'll get you all together, and you can just look into it and see the feasibility of this thing, and we'll have a meeting about it. Okay?
Can I say something about that?
Yeah.
I can't imagine it. Not to be a downer and to burst people's bubbles, okay?
But you will.
But yeah, exactly, why not? Several times this has been tried in Hampton Bays. When it actually came to a vote and it was opposed, the way I understand it, I wasn't involved in it, the fire department in particular seemed to oppose it, it got voted down. But several years ago, the Civic Association did try. We even had a lawyer come and speak several times and explain the procedure for doing it. It is so difficult,
that finally the committee gave up. It's almost impossible to do. Apparently, if you're a tiny, tiny community, you have to get a census that even if you're off by some one person, they can throw the whole thing out of court. So in a small community, it's more feasible. In a community like Hampton Bays with the population we have, it's very difficult. So I'm just saying, I'm not saying don't try it, but be prepared for the fact that this committee we had was a good committee. They worked very hard, they worked very long, they consulted with attorneys, and finally they threw up their hands and said, it's almost impossible. It's sad.
I know, but I just think we should just at least try to give it a
Well, I'm not
try.
saying don't. I just forewarned this forearmed. It's not the piece of cake. A lot of people say, oh, let's just become a village. Well, it's not. We'll just become a village. It's very difficult.
I just want to make a couple of comments on that, though. The demographics of Hampton Bays have changed, and the footprint for the village does not necessarily have to be all of Hampton Bays' school district. It could be a smaller area. It could be just south of the highway here. So, I mean, where there's a will, there's a way. I mean, I'm kind of neutral on it, but I really think if you know people, get the contact information, we'll get you all together and just look into it. And, if this really looks, and Marion has the experience, if it really looks that difficult, then you looked into it. But it is no question that the people that live in the villages do a lot better than what we do. They pay lower taxes. In Quogue, where they have houses $4 or $5 million, they pay $4,000 a year in taxes. And they're not worried about all these accessory apartments and Best and all that, because it's not going to happen there. And it's pretty evident that any time the town wants to dump something, you know where that goes. Thank you. Okay.
Well, not me. I just don't want to be included in that.
What's that? Could you explain?
I said not him. Not the town knows. Not him, Frank. Not Michael. It's not me.
All right, we'll do the right thing, Make me happy and we'll do the right thing. Okay. Now, one other thing, we've gotten many, again, I get emails and everything. We really would like to have the residents, probably I was even thinking the next meeting, of the Westwood, that live up at the Westwood property where the Shinnecock Nation plowed, took the road and plowed, knocked down all the trees. They've come up with some additional new information about that property. They really want to present it. They're frustrated. They haven't got their say. So I really would like to we would like to have them here, probably at the next meeting or thereabouts. At some point, we will have Lisa Goree come here because she's the new head of the tribal council of the Shinnecock Nation. She is also an assessor, and I had a piece in the paper about the conflict of interest. That seems to me to be a conflict of interest, but we'll see what happens with that. So, does anybody here from that area?
So is everybody, I would like to see them come and tell us what they found. I'll make a motion, to have the residents come and explain what their position is, what they have found. They've done a lot of research, and to present it to the membership. I would like to see that. I don't know if anybody else.
I'll make a motion, I'll have them at the next meeting.
I have a question about that.
I second it.
Are they trying to go to the town with their findings?
I think they did, but they want to bring it to, they want to explain.
They want the community involvement. So I'll second that. Who's in favor of having them here?
I don't need
Okay. And I think that we like to have council member Zilli come here because he's been active in this thing. And they would like you to be here because they want to present their findings to you.
Well, I'm not the ultimate, as you know, I'm not the ultimate decider here. There's four council members and a supervisor, but here's something that I do want to say to this.
We just have to say yes or no. You don't have to make a speech.
No, it's not that. It's not that easy. And one of the reasons why is because a lot of this is contingent on the state litigation of the monuments. That's still, by the way, underway. So, with the whole goal here, right, is to get, if the Shinnecock Nation is going to move forward with the gas station, we want the access to be on Sunrise Highway, not on the residential streets of Hampton Bays on Newtown Road. And if we want that to happen, we're going to need to see what comes of the state litigation, which is because of Sunrise Highway. Sunrise Highway is a state road. So I really think it would behoove all of us to see what the state decides before we present anything to the town.
Well, I have to say,
Excuse me, just, Michael, but does the town recognize the juxtaposition you put yourself in when you have a town employee, Lisa Gori, who's also head of the nation, which is, my understanding, that should be seen as a different country, also working in the town of Southampton? Isn't that clear? It's like asking Putin to run us and run Russia. I mean, isn't that, has that been discussed?
It has not been discussed right now, no.
So that's not considered a conflict of interest?
I don't know, we would have to.
How can you have the head of the Shinnecock Nation working in Southampton town, and then we have all this?
Sure, but that wasn't the question that was brought to my and I was addressing something completely different, not Lisa Gori.
I think it's the same, because it gives residents of Southampton.
I know, but it's not the same issue. With all due respect, it's not the same issue. It's a completely different issue.
I want to.
And I'm happy to have our town attorneys weigh in if that's something that you're inquiring on.
I think that they should definitely do that.
We our town attorneys can weigh in on that. But that's a whole separate matter. This was.
All right, wait a minute. I just want to say that these people are very frustrated. They feel they haven't had, they want to present their evidence, and we're going to have them.
And they should absolutely.
And I would really like, and you didn't answer the question, we would like to have you here too.
Sure, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Mike.
Today, I wasn't.
Thank you. You're becoming a very good politician. I can see that.
I'm not a politician.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are, and you're getting very good at it. All right. Okay, what, by the way, there's going to be a hearing, and I should have wrote this down, because they're going to have a new chapter, ethics chapter, and hopefully they enforce it. They're going to have a hearing about the adoption of a new chapter to the town code. Do you know when that?
It passed.
It passed?
Done.
It was already done.
It's done?
We did it.
You did it already?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we got to make sure they got to enforce it. So we have some cases we have to bring to it. Certainly, Mary.
What are you talking about? I feel a little ignorant saying this, but I had trouble finding out what the specifics of the new ethics law are. And I think to piggyback a little bit on what Ray has said, I personally, I'm speaking personally now, not for the Civic Association, but I personally take offense at somebody chosen, for instance, for the Zoning Board of Appeals, who's also on a committee that has great influence in town hall. I think if you're on one committee, whether it's elected, appointed, you're on one committee, because it's a built-in conflict of interest, and it gives the appearance of impropriety, whether it is or not. How can you be on the sustainability committee, for instance, championing, thank you, the best system, and then be on the ZBA, which is going to make decisions about the best system. And even if the person recuses themselves, their fellow panel members, there's a certain, pressure there to play along. I think it's imperative, and I mean imperative, that the town make one, you're appointed or you're elected, you're on one thing, and that's it.
Okay. There was a letter to the editor in the paper. Somebody sent in a letter to the editor about that this week in the paper. Okay, that would be me.
What was it?
All right, now the last question I want to get, and then we're going to get out of here early. Everybody's going to go home early.
Ray, is Michael going to tell us about something, or just to visit?
No, he just came out as an observer. He was,
I'm just here to be here just in case anybody had any issues.
Would you like to get up and address us on anything, or?
Could you tell us about the traffic?
Sure, would you like me to come?
Yes, please.
Come on, Michael.
Well, before Michael starts, I should be calling him Michael, but I do like him very much. He's a good guy. But he is becoming a politician.
Listen, I gotta be honest, this is the only thing I do in terms of public life. I'm fine with that. I'm not looking to go up for a higher office or anything.
Take it easy. We're just kidding around. I just want to make
You should know that.
Okay, please. I just want to put this out because people ask me about this. There's a development going on which is west of 24 and just slightly north of 27. They've cut a road in there, and that's a new development going in there. And it's going to be, I think, now I'm not sure about this, currently it's 8 house sites, but eventually I think it's going to be up to 24 in back.
Sands?
Yeah, it's,
See up to 24 units.
well, it's 24 units, when they have a sign that says 8 units, 8 house sites, but that's, you can see the road's gonna go further. That's,
The one across from the police?
no, it's not across from
Oh,
the, it's on the other side of 24, it's on the west side of 24 and slightly north of 27. People were asking me about it, I drove in there, and they have 8 sites being developed, but I get the impression it's gonna be another 8.
In front of the park entrance.
Yes,
Yeah, across the
yes.
street.
Yeah, so there's gonna be a development in there. Okay, people were asking me, I just wanted to inform everyone. Okay.
What's the location? I'm sorry. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah, well, they're not doing anything wrong, I'm sure it's improved, but it's, people wanna know what's going there. It's like, when you go down 24 and you go into the diner, before you get to 27, on the right, you can see there's a road being cut in there. And it's slightly north of the, it's slightly north of 27, and they say, there's 8 housing sites, but you can see there's gonna be more eventually.
I didn't see that site plan. All right.
Email me and I'll look into it. We established a traffic mitigation and safety task force. Do you guys hear me? We established a traffic safety and mitigation task force to start trying to address some of the traffic issues and safety issues that many of our hamlets are facing. And the goal with that originally was to proactively engage the community on what's happening in your communities and see what the highway department could do, the police department can do to try to enhance safety, as well as deploy various mitigation tactics, which the highway department has done throughout its the tenure of Charlie McCardle, which they've tried to be creative. We had our first meeting last month. It was very good. We kind of established what we were going to be doing, which the end goal is to create a final report, which hopefully can be a blueprint that outlines our short-term and long-term goals to solve some of the traffic issues. We discussed a variety of ways we can try and solve some of the traffic. We talked about scales that might be able to be deployed on some roads to deter some of the truck traffic. We talked about the blinking yellow light program, the cone program, as well as speed monitors that blink a very bright flashing light to sort of deter speeding behavior. There's a lot more we have to cover, and each meeting we want to hear from the public. So there's an hour dedicated toward the public comment period, where we hear from people of the public to come and make a comment to our task force, which is made up of me, Maria Moore, Legislator Welker. We also have the Chief of Police. We have Charlie McCardle. We have Tom Neely. We have Tom Howden, our engineer. We have a business representative as well. We have EMS and fire. So we have a nice variety of folks that can hopefully act, and that's really the whole goal here. Is this is a traffic issue that has gone on for a very long time, both in terms of congestion, which is affecting our quality of life, and safety, which is a public safety concern. So my whole goal with this was to get action right away. So our next meeting is happening on May 1st at 6 p.m. At Town Hall, and you're all welcome to come and address the task force. You could also attend via Zoom if you can't make it in person. We've made it available via Zoom. And if you can't make any of them, we also have the stream on YouTube as well. So we're trying to make it as transparent as possible, try to drive as much engagement as possible as well. Look, we're not going to find an answer to everything. This is a structural issue. This is a systematic issue dealing with our traffic. But there are some things that we can do in the here and now. We hope to do that. So that's number one with the Traffic Mitigation Safety Task Force.
I'd like to ask you a question that's not directly related to that at all. And I thought of asking Kara, but I think it's not within her purview. People always say, we don't have any affordable housing out here for our children, things like that. And yet they don't realize that most of the affordable housing is a pool of Suffolk County residents. So if we got 50 apartments for affordable housing in Hampton Bays, the 50 apartments could be filled by up to, the people who could apply could be the 70,000 people in the town of Southampton, or the 500,000 people in the town of Brookhaven, to name only two. And so the odds of our children locally getting any of this stuff is it's really a moot point. And I think it's disingenuous to keep allowing people to say that. I've suggested, and I saw this in one of my past careers, that precedence could be given by zip codes, that as long as you were eligible, no prejudice like that involved, but as long as you met the other criteria, they would go into a pool of eligible people, and the first people with priority would be the people within that zip code. Or in the case of a case that just came up in my old neighborhood in Brooklyn, the community board, so a little larger than that. And I've been told, oh, that's not workable, but I can't believe it's not workable because I've seen it done. I think there should, and I think the town board's gonna have to take the lead on it, and I think morally and ethically, it's a good thing. If we're gonna pay the price for having some kind of increase in Hampton Bays, the first people who have dibs should be people in Hampton Bays who've gone to the church all their lives, they've gone to the doctors all their lives, their kids are in the school here, and I don't know why the board is not really more proactive in something like this. Maybe you've never thought of it, but I think it's really, really important to me anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd love to hear your experiences because maybe that could be informative for us. But from what and we have talked about this in meetings, and one of the things that we have been faced with is fair housing law and not violating fair housing law. And the issue with zip codes is you're identifying areas and prioritizing them, which could conflict with
But I'm telling you that, it's a housing law. Whose housing law? Because certainly in New York City, it's allowed.
Paula, do you have Paula's getting up. She might have some information for you on this.
And hopefully chapter and verse if there's a law involved.
I think what the issue is, if there is if it's a private developer and they get funds from the government, it has to be open to everybody. But if it's a town program, like the Community Housing Fund program, I believe then they can limit it to the town. But you have to verify that with the attorney.
But I'd like someone to check into the first part of your answer. If it's a government, I think a lot of people are passing the buck.
It's usually a partnership. Like when we had Sandy Hollow, that was a partnership between a private developer and they got funding from the government.
And because of
that.
Suffolk County? What government?
New York State.
See, that's
It's
at
New
what
York
level
State.
of government. So therefore, maybe you could be talking to our New York State representatives to see what the law really is in writing and find out what we can do to amend the laws. Laws are never carved in stone. They can be amended.
Yeah, I think we have looked at that, Mary, but we'll check again and email me.
I will be happy to help you.
I will say this though, just to kind of not skirt around that, but to get around the issue of the funding issues. One of the things that I have been suggesting to the Community Housing Fund director, Kara, who is here, is that while the ADU program that she had discussed with you is seeing some success, I did suggest that we maybe prioritize down payment assistance. You mentioned our children. I think that down payment assistance may be much more effective in helping to allow young professionals and families to start their lives and achieve the American dream that way. Because I can tell you, if my wife and I had the ability to put a down payment on the house or a little flexibility with that, we would. So I think there are young professionals that would very much be interested in that. And by the way, with that, you're utilizing existing infrastructure. You're utilizing our existing housing stock, not adding to the density and building more. So and I can tell you that Supervisor Moore is very much in favor of that as well as our other board members. So it's really about how do we now move in that direction. We did have a meeting with Kara recently where we're looking at that. So I do hope that we move in that direction for our CHF.
That'd be great. I'm all for that, really. Because you get young people that he might be a volunteer firefighter or an ambulance. You want to help these people stay in our community, and I think that's a wonderful, way to do that. And I have 4 children. I have one of them that doesn't have a house, and they both have good jobs. It's very difficult for them to have a child and to save for a down payment. So anything like that, I think, would be very, very helpful.
It is very positive. We've received a lot of comments from the community.
I think that's great. Thank you.
Can I just mention one last?
Certainly.
Because then I'm going to go to dinner if that's okay. But probably Francesca's, honestly. But I just wanted to say too, one of the things that we've done is we've reestablished the Southampton Disability Advisory Committee as the Disability Task Force. And for those of you in the community that may know families that have children with special needs or individuals with special needs, we now have published a disability resource guide, which is tremendously helpful in connecting various folks with disabilities with services, whether it's in the private sector or public sector services. It's so important to have information on where to go if you're looking to help your children, find housing, a career, educational programs, or assistance. So it's one of the things that we worked on, very proud of it. I have a sister with a learning disability. I had an aunt with Down syndrome. So my family has experienced a lot of hardship in the sense of trying to find ways to help their kids. So it's just something to let your neighbors know.
Thank you for coming, and I hope you understand we're only kidding around with you. He's really a great guy. I really like this man. Really, he showed up here on his own tonight. So let's hear it for him. Okay, with that, I think, go ahead. You want to?
This is the Shinnecock gas station.
Okay, go ahead, sir. You want to get up on the mic, or you want to use this mic? You want to hold it?
My question is, does anybody know if the Shinnecocks are also planning on selling diesel fuel? Because that brings an altogether different perspective with commercial trucking.
Oh, yeah. I have no idea, but I would think that's a possibility.
I think that's a very good thing to know. So that's my question.
Okay, well, we don't know, but this is something we do plan. We would like to have the Shinnecock, Lisa go read now. So when she comes here, hopefully, we're asking that question. Okay, well, that's it. Anybody else? I move to adjourn. I second it. You're adjourned. Thank you very much. Everybody.